Well, today is a very unique day for the Self Starter Podcast because we are actually not bringing on a new guest, but we're bringing on a previous guest for you to be able to highlight what's changed since we originally talked. Actually, I think this conversation we hit record in August of 2023. As a business owner, lots and lots can change. So we're here to talk to Talya Pessolano today. So Talya, welcome to the Self Starter Podcast again.
Thank you for having me again.
I'm going to encourage everyone, if you haven't listened to Talya's original episode, it was titled Hungry to Start a Business. And you're going to understand why she's so hungry here just in a second if you haven't listened to that. But hit pause here, go back and listen to the first episode, and then come back because I promise you that will not be an episode you want to miss. But let's just assume that you have been able to listen to it. Talya, go ahead and just give everyone a little bit of a refresher, who you are, what you do, and all that goodness there.
Yeah, my name's Talya Pessolano. I am the owner of the Dirty Italian in South Boston, Mass. We are a mini delicatessen that serves sandwiches, prepared foods, and imported groceries and catering.
Well, you say mini, but you're anything but mini. You have exploded. So that's really what I want to talk today is not only how you've been able to sustain a business as a solopreneur that's actually in a physical brick and mortar space, but also how you've been able to navigate some of these challenges that come with building a business. And also what we were talking about before we hit record, how your vision's changed a little bit, because I think that's important to highlight too.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy, kind of like what we were talking about off camera, is just how much has actually changed. And I had my original vision going into this when we first spoke in 2023, thinking I wanted to really focus on the charcuterie side and be able to do drop ship and start that way. And then I've had such an overwhelming amount of people looking for catering, prepared meals, charcuterie tables, so the big grazing tables, that I don't have time to do the drop ship, which is a kind of a blessing because I didn't really want to have to add a whole nother section of my storage space in the basement to dedicate to just the drop ship stuff. But I mean, the biggest takeaway, like when I first opened a business, and I feel like anyone listening to this that has ever started a business, whether it's something from home or an actual brick and mortar, being able to pivot and think on the fly has really like changed the way I do everything, like not just at my store or in the business, but in my daily life. Like I think we talked about this, and again, I'm sorry if I'm repeating, but the opening week, I messed up the cheesecake brownies and had to think on my feet and literally create something. So we turned them into cheesecake brownie balls. So basically cake pops. And I never thought I would have to make those again. And now we're literally making them constantly. I make 600 minimum a week, which is crazy. So I've perfected the recipe now. Like I'm now teaching it to my kitchen staff. So it's not like I have to be in the kitchen 24/7, whereas when I first opened, I feel like I was working almost 18-hour days every single day. Even though we're closed on Mondays, I was still in here baking cookies. And now I'm slowly starting to get my life back, which is great. So yeah, a lot has changed since then.
Clearly, that was one of my favorite stories that you told back when we first hit record in 2023 was the cheesecake brownie story, because I like to call it a happy accident where it's in the moment you're thinking, "Oh my goodness, I just ruined this batch." You're thinking dollar signs in the air, but in the end, you're able to get creative with the resources you had at hand, and now you're doing 600 a week. That's not a small number. But what I really want to touch on here is basically your clientele has created a demand and really told you what they wanted. And that's what I'm kind of hearing from this conversation so far is, yes, you had this vision, but the demand was actually taking you in a different direction.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually still use the clientele, like my followers on Instagram, to ask what they want to see this week because we do post different specials every day so people can order on DoorDash and Uber Eats. I've done that actually quite a bit. And I had someone requesting red velvet cookies. So then we started making those. And now those are really popular. I had someone else asking me about the banana Foster tart, which I made once for one baby shower. And now I'm making those every week. So I try to incorporate like any kind of request because for me, when I first moved to Southie, I always wanted a spot that I would be able to walk in. If I'm craving something specific, I can make it like there. So I grew up with so many delis where, like, if I wanted a certain turkey sandwich, I can go in and make whatever type of turkey sandwich I want. And Southie didn't have that. It was very much like, no, this is our menu. That's it. You maybe can remove some things, but you can't create your own. So I thrive off of that. So we have that option in the store, which is really nice. And people come in and make some of the craziest sandwiches, flavors and all, and we don't judge, but it allows them to actually like feel fulfilled with what they're craving that day.
Well, one of the things that I really liked about what you've created is you've created a sense of home and acceptance for your community where they feel like it's a comfortable place where they can show up and have that consistent thing that they're looking for, but also feel like they're okay to be themselves. You've created a family essentially.
Yeah, we have some regulars that we see at the same time on specific days. We have a bunch of new people too that always come in, but it is like really nice because Southie really is like a very tight-knit community. There's a lot of college kids here, and the big move-in day is September. So every September now, we're about to approach our third September, which is wild because we opened in July of 2023. We're about to probably get a whole nother wave of people who have never lived on this side of Southie. So there's going to be like a transitioning period, and the people that move away from this side are the ones that still come back, which is really nice. And it's always really exciting to see some of these families come back because now they've had kids or they just got engaged or married. And my staff and I remember because we actually take the time to talk to all of our customers.
It's incredible. And
Yes.
I know that that was that feel that you're wanting to really bring to the table here. No pun intended,
Yeah.
to the table. But because you grew up in such a family atmosphere as well, and that's kind of what sparked you having this dream to be able to open up your own deli was the fact that here, why don't we touch on that story just a little bit on kind of how reignite everyone's
Yeah.
memory.
So like long story short, basically is I've lived in Southie now for 10 years. When I was graduating with my master's, I always wanted to open up a deli because I worked in one for my entire life. But my like family friend who we call Uncle Joe is the one that basically told me to go off and do what I did, you know, from like what I learned in school, which was business. So I got into sales, software sales specifically, stayed in that for a very long time. And then when the pandemic hit, I just wasn't happy. And I know a lot of people weren't happy because everything got stripped away. So I tried finding something to entertain myself, which was the charcuterie stuff on the weekends, making it for friends and family. And to me, it was very easy because I did it my whole life. But that's when the whole charcuterie trend started, the whole salami rolls, the salami rivers, like all of that started to kick off. I just used the trend and jumped on the bandwagon. And sure enough, I had a local blogger in Southie that posted one of my pictures, and then I gained a bunch of followers overnight. And that's when I was like, oh my God, I need to start an LLC because I had orders coming in. So I think, because of that experience, like knowing at an early age that I always wanted to do this. And even though I've transitioned into like a full-blown corporate career, I still would take time to go home to Springfield, Mass and work at Frigo's, which is our family friend's delicatessen, and I loved it. Like I didn't care I was taking off a week to like go on a vacation. Like that was my vacation because to me that wasn't stressful. It was very like calming and relaxing because I enjoyed being in the kitchen and I enjoyed helping the customers and wearing a lot of hats at that. So I really think if I didn't work there my whole life, that there's no way I would probably know what my passion even was at this point. So I'm very lucky that I was there as long as I have been, and I'm also very lucky because they took the time to leave their stores in Western Mass. They have two to come to Boston for the first 2 weeks when I opened and literally trained my entire staff and worked. Like it was just so much fun, and it felt like, Christmas time again because that's always when I went home to help for a couple of weeks. And even now I still go back on Christmas Eve and I help at Frigo's in Springfield because I close on Christmas Eve.
Well, again, it shows you how family centered you are, that you truly are wanting to create this amazing experience, not only for your customers, but also for yourself. And I think that a lot of people that are listening to this have these dreams for more, but sometimes the societal pressure about what you should do kind of keeps you playing it within that box. But you decide, like, you got your master's and you went into the corporate world because maybe some of those shoulds were kind of powerful, but you didn't put your dream aside. You kept like working towards it. And I remember you actually got laid off right before going on a sabbatical. And that was kind of that little nudge that you needed. And if I'm remembering correctly too, you made a business blueprint back, I think, in when you were 16. Was it 16 or so?
It was during my master's year. So
Okay.
I made one of the big assignments for the master's, like one of the classes was to write a business, like basically a business plan of whatever you wanted, but it had to be very detailed. And I literally did one for the deli that I future me wanted. And I used that to get my bank loan, which is crazy because that just shows that it wasn't that out of date. There was like a couple of little like permit things, but that was it. I literally had everything. And I remember handing it to the bank loan officer and her being like, this is the most organized like business plan I've ever seen. I'm like, this is from like 2011. But thank you.
It was meant to be. You clearly wanted it, and like all the things were lining up in the right way for you because it was truly meant to be for you. Now, even though things are meant to be, it doesn't mean that sometimes challenges arise. So
Yeah.
especially as a brick and mortar location where you are having to order supplies and ingredients, things are coming up that you kind of sometimes don't know until it arises. So I'm curious to hear from your standpoint, what kind of challenges have you faced as you kind of are in the growing pains era?
Yeah. I mean, there definitely have been some challenges. And again, thinking on your feet is so important. Some of my challenges were definitely with the storage space because we have a very small kitchen, like two small freezers, a very small walk in, and another refrigerator. And anytime, like, if I have extra bread that I'm not going to use for breadcrumbs, we like to freeze it like most people probably have done at their own homes. And we run out of bread pretty frequently in the sense where we'll get last minute phone calls like morning of being like, hey, I need 50 sandwiches. And then that's almost like all of our bread for just that one size. So we have two sizes, bada bing, bada boom. And I know I'm like so typical Italian, but the mindset that I have now is we had to like pivot and actually get a dedicated small chest freezer just for the bread. So that way, like when I actually have bread left over at the end of the day, it goes in the freezer and it stays there for when we actually need maybe breadcrumbs or if I need to pull out a last minute bag or something. The other stuff too is just like the inventory in general. I think it took me a little while to like really understand, especially during high holiday volume times with a lot of different events all in the same week, is ordering at the right time for deliveries because again, we have such a small space that we have to work with that getting a delivery in Boston every single day feels impossible. So I have to schedule specific vendors for specific days of the week. That vendor doesn't show up with what I ordered. I then have to try and find a backup somewhere, whether it's me driving to Costco or it's another vendor that we have just on the side. So that was a big challenge, especially the first year of Christmas that we experienced in 2023. I didn't really understand the volume that we were going to get, and then having to store all of the food like once it's been made was also a big challenge. I had to get a bunch of new shelves just to put inside of the walk-in to fit all of the food. But now it feels like we have a very good grasp on all of that. So like as an example, I had an order actually now it's like a couple of months ago, but at the beginning of December, we had a request for 600 boxed lunches. So that's sandwiches, pasta, cookies, a drink in a small box. So even just setting up the box itself, if you're not familiar with it, which I'm the only one because I learned at Frigos, it takes you a while to understand how to unfold it and tape it. So I feel like a machine because I'm the one that's like zipping them out. And then I have another team making all the sandwiches in the kitchen. The other team is baking the cookies and wrapping them. And then I have another girl making all the pasta salads. So all these small pasta cups, all 600, trying to store that. I had to actually call a neighbor restaurant to be like, can I please put boxes of food in your cooler? Because I knew they had a bigger cooler than I did. So luckily we have amazing neighboring restaurants here, and they also have the same sense of community. So they said no problem. It helped me out so much because the next day the event was right at 10 a.m. So it was like worked all night, stored it, got up and literally opened up the door just to drop off the order, which
Oh
was,
my goodness. 600 boxed lunches in a tiny kitchen.
and it's like this big, like of a box. It's like a decent little package.
Yeah, I mean, no one, if you're not able to see this right now, it's probably what, like 12 by 4 box?
Yeah, it's like a small, decent
Yeah.
box.
Yeah, so that's not a small chunk of space if you're thinking 600 of these. But you also mentioned your team. I know when we spoke last time, you had hired a team of 22 employees,
Yes.
and most of them were part-time employees that were kind of rotating their schedule because they're also balancing school since they're close to the university here. So how has that changed since?
It's changed in the sense where now I feel like we've been more targeted on the individuals that we're looking to hire. So I still have a group of part timers, but my full time people have all had experience prior to coming to the Dirty Italian, which honestly helps me tremendously because a lot of the training, the basic training of even just making a sandwich, they've already had. So now we have about 18, only like maybe seven are part time weekenders and a couple of days here and there during the week. A lot of people doing their masters or finishing up school. And then we have hired more in our kitchen because the catering aspect has grown like crazy. So now I'm still the only one though with a driver's license. So that's probably my next hire is finding someone with a driver's license so they can also do deliveries. And it's not just me running around downtown Boston. So that's going to be my next big goal, I think, for this year. But otherwise, like the people we have now are absolutely amazing. They can wear multiple hats and they know how to act on their, like, react to something, whether it's like chaotic or calming. They're very good thinking on their feet.
Well, and I think that's also a sign of a good leader because you're able to, it starts at the top and then the culture just trickles down. And so you lead by example. And what I really like about you is that you don't have an ego. No job is too small for you. You're able to, you're doing these deliveries. And that's not typically the role of the owner. At this point. So you are working overnight, you're packing these boxes with your team. Like you said, you're the only one that really knows how to tape these together. You're doing the deliveries. It's again, there's no ego. And I think that is really important for people to hear, like, especially if you're growing a team, is that like a little bit of ego is never going to hurt you, but also being able to make sure that you're coming into this and showing your team like what it is, like the culture creating, leading by example. That's so important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like it's always funny to me because I think because growing up in Frigos, I always saw family members working there that to me it's not really weird. And you're right because people do come into the store and they're shocked that the owner's behind the deli making sandwiches.
I personally find it refreshing. It makes me connect with that company and that business on a deeper level. And the businesses that I do go into that are like that, the owner actually, like you were saying earlier, you get to know these people. You are really vested in your customers and making sure they have a good experience. So that's for me, the best experiences I've had when I've gone into physical locations are when the owners are there because they really do care and they put in that little extra touch.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And I'm the same way. I go to a lot of mom and pops, and if I see the owner, even if I'm not like hungry or trying to buy something, I still buy something because it just shows me that they're working just as hard.
Absolutely. Now, your background, like we talked about, is in corporate and you took the leap out of it. But a lot of people, maybe they don't want to start a physical location like you
Mhm.
do. A lot of people are wanting to start like an internet-based business. But what you've used from your past as far as a skill set is very interesting because you have been able to, you had a very different job than you did today. However, there's a lot of similarities. For instance, you were a sales manager and you're still technically in the sales business here. So I'm curious how you've been able to use those skills that you acquired in the corporate world and really transition them over to your own business here?
Yeah. I mean, I think too at such an early age when I first started in corporate, I always like had the thrill of trying to convince someone to buy something from me. So I think it just kind of comes naturally now, but there are moments where I'm like, if someone's like on the edge of trying to figure out what it is that they want, I just give them all the knowledge of the product and tell them my personal like preference or opinion on the product. And then it really just sells themselves. So I definitely think the convincing aspect of it still comes into play because I do love the products that I have in the store and I still get genuinely excited about them. So when I see other people purchase it, try it, and they come back and they literally say like, "Oh my God, that was the best olive oil I've ever had," or "Oh my God, like your cookies," like anything gets me so excited. So I'm like, see, I'm not making it up. I'm not all a bunch of BS. Like I know it's good. So it kind of like reassures what I'm trying to sell in store. So it definitely helps. But my track record, like when I was working corporate, I definitely enjoyed the relationship building of it and really networking with other people. And even now, like, like you said, like some people want to start online and grow their own business that way, which I think is amazing. I actually partner with a lot of women specifically who are doing just that. We have a girl that literally quit her corporate job who now bakes cookies out of a commissary in Stoneham, Massachusetts, and she delivers her cookies all throughout Boston and Mass. And she's now like making them as wedding favors. She just booked a huge gig at the Celtics. We're her official pickup spot in Southie. So if you live in Southie and you order her cookies, you have to come to the Dirty Italian in order to pick them up. So like we've partnered in that way. And I have another group of girls who just quit their other corporate job because they're turning into a mini like bakery from their house and they are trying to establish like their own kitchen, but it's taking so long for them to actually build up and finish construction in the kitchen that they needed somewhere to bake. So I offer my space. So they come in on Mondays, which is when we're closed, and they bake all their cakes and they decorate still like in their other location. So I am 100% like, I love women owned businesses because I'm still doing it. And I still kind of have like the moments like, oh shit, I'm a business owner. Like I forget because I just think it's like day to day life. So for them, if I ever talk to anyone that's like trying to do something similar, I love the networking side of it and like helping in any way that I can. So I do think that my networking self has transitioned very well into this position from my corporate life.
I'm just smiling ear to ear because that stuff just gets my soul all like fired up. I love when women are like linking arms and building each other up instead of tearing each other down. I think we need more of this. And it's just so refreshing. And those are the kind of people that I want to surround myself with. So it's no wonder I like you so much. But all of the different corporate skills that you had mentioned, it makes sense. Like the networking, used the word convincing, but I would say that I wouldn't say you're necessarily convincing because they've already gone into the store. So they're already there to purchase. You're guiding them based on kind of what your recommendations are or what you can tell. Like I'm sure there's people that you ask questions, I guess I should say. You guide them in the right direction here. And then your management experience too. I know you didn't really touch on that, but you managed a group of people and you've been able to bring that in here as well. But we've obviously touched a lot on the challenges, what you've learned, your skills here. But I also want to talk about all the amazing things that have happened since we last spoke. How is life different?
Let's see. I feel like I can't go anywhere without someone asking if I'm the dirty Italian. So there's that, which is pretty funny. Yeah. And I also like this is such like a side note, but I don't have like my corporate clothes anymore. I like donated everything. I literally live in a t-shirt, leggings, and sneakers. And I don't care anymore about like going out to dinner and dressing up because half the time I'm here till 6 o'clock. And if my friends are going out, I literally just go right from the store. So it's kind of like free advertisement, I guess. But that definitely is like its own monster where I feel like now I'm a mini local celebrity. We've been on TV a couple of times. We've had a lot of influencers come in and take pictures of our sandwiches and get like the 5-foot grinders for events, which is crazy. But otherwise, like life is great. There hasn't really been much of a change personal wise other than like my new goals for the store of this year is like if we continue to grow at the rate that we're growing, like I'm praying that this time next year, like literally in February of next year, I can start looking for a second location. Yes.
So, if that is the case, when it is that case, I'm not going to say if because it's going to happen. When that becomes more of a now type of deal, how will that impact your daily life?
So I think I mean it's going to be a little hard just juggling both hats, but because of where the Southie store is right now and with who is here, I'm very confident that I can fully let my team run this store on their own. And I can then focus on the other location and start training at that location for an opening. I also would love to stay in Boston, like inside of the city neighborhoods. Like Charlestown is amazing, very similar to Southie, where people are like living, working from home, have families. Like I want to stay in that type of environment and that type of community. So I would love to do that. I've had a lot of people ask me why I won't go to the North End, and I would love to. The North End has always been like my favorite place to go in Boston, but I don't know if you've been there, but it's a very tight quarter. Like you're not allowed to park anywhere on those streets from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. because the delivery trucks have to go down. It is like impossible to make your way around there if you're driving a big van, big trucks. And I just don't want to deal with that. I don't trust that scenario. And I feel like it would just stress me out. So otherwise, like I would have loved to be in the North End, but there's just no way.
Well, you're a smart businesswoman, so I feel like you need to trust your gut because it hasn't led you astray so far.
No, it has not. So you're right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're definitely you're crushing it. You're getting all the media exposure. Like you said, you're the little local celebrity there and everyone knows your name. It's like cheers.
Yeah.
Well, Talia, thank you so much for coming in and sharing just the updates since we last spoke. I just really wanted to highlight how much can change in a relatively short amount of time. And also, even though we tend to focus a lot more on the online business space, I also wanted to highlight how similar the online business space can be with a brick and mortar store as far as the different skill sets that are required and the people management and all of that good stuff here that you have really touched on today. So thank you so much for coming. Just wanted to leave everyone with one last piece of advice. So I asked you this a year and a half ago, but so now that we're a little bit further along in your journey, what kind of advice would you give a female entrepreneur that's really just looking to get started here?
I definitely think like you're always, and I honestly also don't know what I said when you last asked me this. So hopefully it's not the exact same thing and I've grown from it. But if it is, great. I personally think you're always going to have, I don't want to say haters, but people who doubt your skills or doubt your ability to actually take the leap and start what you want to do as far as your business goes. It's because they're scared for you or they're scared to do it themselves and they always put the doubt on you. I've had multiple people say to me, "Oh, if it doesn't work out, you could always go back to corporate." I'm like, "No, I am not going back to corporate. Like you clearly have no faith. I have faith." So having faith in yourself and really putting yourself at 110% will get you where you want to go. Don't listen to everyone else that's doubting everything. It's great to have those conversations to understand like where your weaknesses might be, but do not for 1 second doubt yourself.
I can 100% say that you did not say that last time.
Great.
I love this. If I had $1 for every person that said that to me too, you can always go back. I'd be rich.
Yeah.
So put your blinders on. If you truly believe something in the depths of your soul and your heart, go for it because it's there for a reason. And like I was talking about with you, Talia, like your gut hasn't steered you wrong so far. So I cannot wait to see what happens when you open the second store because I have a feeling you're not stopping there.
Definitely not.
No. So let's do this. But thank you so much for hopping on again today.
Thank you for having me.